You're welcome to Let's Talk.
We sit down and talk. We need to sit down and talk. How Nigeria corruption, how we're going to do our job.
We want to stand up and say no to corruption. We're going to do our job, protecting the system. You are not just doing good for yourself or for the nation alone, you also do good for the future.
Boko Haram is an attack, it's a spiritual attack. It's a satanic attack on Nigeria. We must, if we come to recognize it, we will understand then how to look for the solution.
The Sovereign National Conference, how do we want to achieve that in our present system? We need to sit down and iron out how Nigeria should be governed.
Hello and thanks for joining us. The program is Let's Talk, and it is our discussion program where we try to analyze issues in society and try to chart a way forward as well. Now, my name is Zoe Okafor, and today we are going to leave the shores of Africa and take a look at continuing sentiments on the Iraq War. Now, more recently, South Africa's fiery retired Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu called for former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair and the former US President George Bush to be hauled before the International Criminal Court in The Hague to answer for the devastation caused by the Iraq War. Now, Tutu, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner and hero of the anti-apartheid movement, accuses the former British and US leaders of lying about weapons of mass destruction and says that the invasion left the world more destabilized and divided than any other conflict in history. So we want to be looking at that so many years after. What are the sentiments currently? Does the Archbishop have a point? Should these two leaders who spearheaded that invasion, should they face justice or should they face trial for that war? And that's our topic for today. It says Desmond Tutu on the Iraq War prosecutes George Bush and Tony Blair. Now, I have with me Adeniyi Odunsi. He is a legal practitioner. He is an expert in international relations. He's also a consultant and a social expert. You're welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
Okay, so let's talk about that quickly. You know, the Iraqi war, once in a while, it's actually been overshadowed by other things going on in the world. We've got issues in Syria, Libya, you know, before that, and lots of things going on. But in some quarters, the sentiment is still very, very strong as regards that. Now, what are your own sentiments as regards the Iraqi war of 2003? And from your point of view, was that war justified? What are your sentiments on that?
On the Iraqi war, from what has transpired now, I think most people now understand that this, was a war that should never have been fought. There were apparently other reasons why America decided to take out Saddam Hussein. We were told there were weapons of mass destruction, the smoking gun and all that. But they went in there and they didn't find anything. Later, we discovered that they knew that there was enough information, even from the CIA, to show that they didn't have any hard evidence. But in any case, they had made up their minds this was what had to be done, and they went there. And of course, the rest is history. We know what has happened. It's not a war that should have been fought. It's most unfortunate, and the Archbishop is right to some certain extent, that this is something that has now caused a lot of, more problems for the world. So it's not a war that should have been fought.
Okay, so you're saying that based on evidence that those motives were actually fabricated
yes,
for them to
we can
move in.
put it that way. Yes, they were fabricated. Even Tony Blair, speaking recently, when he commented on what Desmond Tutu said, what he was now saying was that, well, how can the Archbishop be saying that removing Saddam Hussein was wrong? He was no longer now focusing on the weapons. He was now talking about the fact that Saddam Hussein was a bad leader who was killing or murdering his own people, and the best thing to do was, to have taken him out. But at what cost?
Okay.
That's really the problem.
Now, do you think that the real motive behind that invasion might have to do with the September 11 attacks, which, for the first time made the U.S. realize that they're not as,
as strong
as they thought they were?
No, I even September 11, there are always conspiracy theories. And it's coming out now that probably this was not something that was planned by Al-Qaeda alone. Let me put it that way. Some people are still saying that it's not possible for bin Laden to have orchestrated and organized something that was almost flawless. Almost flawless. Some people said even George Bush's reaction when this thing happened showed that perhaps he had some inkling as to what was going on. There are also rumors that bin Laden was in fact his family was in fact in the US when this happened, and it was an American plane that took him out. There are rumors, I just call them rumors now, that bin Laden's family and the Bush family had done some business in the past. So when you put all this together, and now you say, well, maybe they decided to go there and revenge.
Okay.
I really don't think so.
That was the reason.
I don't think that was the reason. The reasons were more economical.
Okay.
The reasons had to do more with getting oil, being in control. America depends so much on crude for energy, for power. Now, their normal or historical sources, they were having problems at that time. So it became expedient to get oil from other sources. And Iraqi and unfortunately Saddam Hussein and his antecedents gave them a very good excuse to move in there. You'll find out that the U.S. elections are on now. What they're talking about mainly is about the economy. Now, I haven't heard anybody talk about the fact that the Iraqi war was one of the things that put them in this trouble they're in. They spend billions and billions of dollars. Taxpayers' money. But nobody is even thinking about it anymore. It's old news.
Okay. Let's talk about the morality of the war, for instance, for a while. Now, you said, and just like the Archbishop said, Desmond Tutu said that because of that war, the world is more polarized.
Yes.
At some point, he actually said that in some way that war is responsible for the Arab Spring and in, some other uprisings that we had going on, like what happened in Libya and all of that. Now, in what other ways, when you say polarize the world, shed some light on that polarizing?
I wouldn't entirely agree that it was the Iraqi war that led to the Arab Spring. No, that's not entirely true.
Okay.
The Arab world before now was ruled by dictators. This has been helped by the religion there. The system there is that there are some people who are destined to rule and others who are destined to be followers. Now, with more education, with more internet connectivity, people in that region began to understand the fact that, look, this cannot be true. This cannot be correct. And so it all started from people becoming aware of their rights.
Okay.
And realizing that we don't have to be the ruled. We can also rule. Things can change. So it's not really saying that, no, it was the Iraqi war. The Iraq before the war was obviously more stable than it is now. Everybody knows that. Saddam Hussein was a bad leader. But he was there using force to put the different tribes in check. Now he was removed, and now you have tribal wars going on there. That's just what happened. It's just circumstantial. The war being polarized now is not so much as a result of the Iraqi war, no. It's a shift. It's people becoming more educated in the Arab world. It's people having more access to the Western world. In those days when you had no internet, you had no cable, satellite TV, the Arabs didn't know that it was wrong for some people to say, you are just to be followers. We are born leaders.
Okay.
But with access to information, access to what's happening in other parts of the world, now they became awakened. And they realized that this should not continue. So that's basically what happened.
Okay. Now, in that open article which the Archbishop Desmond Tutu wrote, he specifically said that the former leaders of the US and the UK, that's talking about George Bush and Tony Blair, should be prosecuted, that they should face charges at the International Criminal Court. Do you share those views?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't share those views. I mean, what they did was morally wrong. Like he said they behaved like bullies on the playground. There's no, you can't call aggression a crime. They were aggressive, they shouldn't have. They flaunted their power. US, the superpower, just decided, look, we can do this. We don't need the United Nations. We don't need any resolutions. We can go all by ourselves. You see, this started after the Second World War, this matter of saying people have committed crimes against humanity and all that, and setting up the court to try them. After the World War, the Allied forces went against the leaders, the Germans that murdered the Jews, and then some Japanese. They were tried. It was from 1945. This thing started after the end of the Second World War. But when you look at the history of the criminal court itself in The Hague, you'll find out that the U.S. doesn't even recognize that court.
Yes, the U.S. does not.
Now, how are you going to arrest these leaders? Now, when you look at the legislation, the statutes, you find out that you can only arrest people and try them for genocide, crimes of war, and then crimes against humanity. What is genocide? It's when you systematically attempt to eradicate a group. You attack a group, a tribe, or a nation, and you want to exterminate them. That's genocide. So you can't accuse Bush or Blair of genocide. If you talk about war crimes, this is where civilians are attacked. Or no, that's crimes against humanity, when civilians are attacked without any form of, civilians who are unarmed. When you attack them, that's like a crime against humanity. When you talk about war crimes, you talk about things like how you handle prisoners of war. Now, if you look at these three categories, under which are you going to place them? Under which are you going to say you want to try them? Of course, you can hold leaders responsible for the actions of a country. But then how are you going to prove that what they did, we don't have it on record that they intentionally attacked any civilians during that war. And if you say they attacked civilians, they'll tell you the civilians were shooting at them. So how do you prove this thing?
Now, could he be alluding to the fact that this might be a case of selective justice, that if these were, there's been this argument that it's only mostly African leaders and Asian leaders that are dragged before the ICC. So could he be alluding to that? And the fact that if perhaps there were some other countries that were involved in this, that they would have been dragged to the court by now?
African countries, yes. Asian countries. But we have to be realistic. Desmond Tutu is a South African. For his 80th birthday, he invited the Dalai Lama. The South African government refused to give him a visa. Why? A week or so before then, the vice president of the Republic of South Africa was in China cutting deals. China promised to give them $2.5 billion to invest in the country. Now, China thinks the Dalai Lama is a separatist and would have nothing to do with him. So they just told the South African government, don't give him a visa. Why? The $2.5 billion investment was at stake. And the South African government refused to give him a visa. Desmond Tutu made a lot of noise, but what has become of it? This is the real world. I mean, we can all be idealistic and say things should be like this, things should be like that. The United States is the greatest, should I use the word, funder of the United Nations.
Yeah.
So they call the shots.
They call the shots, invariably.
Look at the World Bank. Ngozi was the most qualified candidate. Did she get the job? Why? Even some of these countries, and I suspect including South Africa, did not support the Nigerian candidate, the African candidate, because it was better to pander to the interests of the West and the superpowers than to... So that's the real world.
Okay, now, well, in his defense, Tony Blair, when he was responding to that, I'm going to read it out the way I have it here. He says, I have great respect for Archbishop Tutu's fight against apartheid, but to repeat the old carnot that we lied about intelligence is completely wrong, as every independent analysis of the evidence has shown. And he goes on to say that Iraq's economy is stronger as a result of that war, and that they have a more healthier democracy in which people can actually disagree, unlike the way it was before. What do you have to say to that defense, very quickly?
Well, anybody, I mean, this is just a debate. Anybody can say what they want to say. We all know that they lied about it, that is true. But you see, you have to understand that the government will always have a ruler, will always have a defense, will always be able to blame other people. A ruler can always say, I took a decision based on the information that was given to me. So if the people lied to me, I only had the life to take a decision.
Okay.
So he gets out of it that way. Someone else has to take the fall, not the leader. So that's basically what it is about. The whole world knows Iraq is not better off. The body count project says that 6.5 people die every day in Iraq. Since 2003, 110,000 people have been killed. Even American troops, over 2,000 of them have died. So can we say, if you were to ask an Iraqi if he's better off today, yes, maybe he can express his views. But the violence there, I don't think anybody would, have willingly chosen that kind of lifestyle.
So with the lives that were lost, both civilians and soldiers, U.S. soldiers, I mean, I think about 550,000 or thereabouts soldiers died in that amount, in that war. Not to talk of the monies, like we said in the beginning, that was spent on it.
Yes.
So you don't think, I mean, it was not worth it. You're of the view that it was not worth the sacrifice.
It was not worth it for the Iraqis. It was worth it for the Americans. What has happened now is that the suicide bombers are engaged in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They are not in the U.S. anymore. It's more like shifting the battleground. The chances of the U.S. being attacked or any terror attack on the U.S. now is almost nil, which was not the case after 9/11. But with what is going on in Iraq now, it's easier to bomb someone in Iraq than to bomb in the U.S. You can make your statements bombing in Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan than try to come to the U.S. and get caught. And, so to that extent, the Americans are the better for it.
Okay, and the fact that the Archbishop refused to attend a certain conference because Tony Blair was going to be at that conference as well, that was personal.
It's also personal. I don't very much take what the Archbishop says too serious. I don't, because he's an Archbishop, is a great supporter of gay marriage. So I too, it's personal. I don't always take whatever he says serious too. Anybody that reads the Bible and supports gay marriage, I question what they say.
Their motives. Okay, well, the debate on the 2003 Iraqi war might continue for a long time as to who is right and who is wrong. But the truth is that the people that are actually involved, who are the Iraqis themselves, it is going to be their own decision to decide if they are aggrieved or if any laws were breached, and as such, they are going to be the ones to seek redress if they so choose. Now, we have been looking at Desmond Tutu and his views on the Iraqi war and on his call to prosecute the former leaders of the US and the UK, talking about Tony Blair and George Bush. And that's how we have done it on today's edition of Let's Talk. Thank you very much for being part of this. It is greatly appreciated. We will be back here tomorrow for another edition of this program.
You're welcome to Let's Talk.
To sit down and talk. We need to sit down and talk. How Nigeria corruption, how we're going to do our job.
You want to stand up and say no to corruption. We're going to do our job, protecting the system. You are not just doing good for yourself or for the nation alone, you also do good for the future.
Boko Haram is an attack, it's a spiritual attack. It's a satanic attack on Nigeria. We must, if we come to recognize it, we will understand then how to look for the solution.
The Sovereign National Conference, how do we want to achieve that in our present system? We need to sit down and iron out how Nigeria should be governed.